And this is a little warm-up. I was interested today in looking at shapes. A nice easy one to start with being a circle. And I just started drawing one somewhere. I find they're never really quite a circle the first time I draw it. And then I just start going around and getting closer to making that circle for a little while. And it starts to get thick and dense. You breath and move to a new place. And then you try to slow it down. Just turn my body. In a sense, like the eye and hand connection's ability to auto-correct what we think it should be when we see a circle. And then to throw a little wrench in, go to a new place, start working in your direction. Clockwise to counterclockwise, or counterclockwise to clockwise. Seeing if that changes things. Sometimes I try to focus on meeting the lines from before. Sometimes I just let my heart move. Shoulder warms up. Just warm up fingers a little bit. Take a little hand around. See if that feels different. I feel like that hand's warm. Switch over to my other hand. It's the off hand. Gives us a little bit of a new sensation. So I like to not exactly go slower, but try to feel it more in my mind, since it takes a little more control for me to use that off hand. If I go a little deeper into the control, it helps get past it and not feel either as fast or chaotic or as forced and constrained. And as I was thinking about this exercise, I was reminded of my business partner in education. She went to Cornell for architecture school as an undergrad, and she told me about all the challenges they had to do in their first semester or year. Things like taking a page made up of paper and just drawing a grid of circles on it freehand. The grid of circles could be each 1 inch, equal, look the same, line up, and be relatively perfect. It was a really stressful exercise for everybody. It's really hard to draw perfect circles. I think in the end, they all also got a lot of satisfaction out of 3 or 4 pages where suddenly they start to look like circles. That getting through the tension and the stress, that time of discomfort that we face intentionally can help open up a space of emptiness or relaxation in the effort. And we get the benefit of a little bit of practice. Maybe a few circles. I think if you're talking in the beginning, Rhonda, it might be nice to do a couple with each hand with the eyes closed and see what happens. I'm just going to go to another space. Keep it my left for now. Go right or left, whichever feels more natural. And in my mind, trying to see the path of the circle, even trying to make the pencil in the language, and follow it around the page, feel how my fingers move, feel how the pressure changes around the circle. If I use my arm, how it stays consistent. Without opening my eyes, switch hands, come down to a new place on the paper, and then go ahead and work in the other direction. Wednesday tends to align with being a yoga day in the morning for me. I'm always kind of coming straight from that to this. My shoulders are a little warm, a bit on fire. And this really brings a lot of tension to them. It helps to work some of that out, some of the tearing of the muscles, some of the stretching, maybe flow more blood through there at an even pace. And as we're ready, bring our attention back to our eyes and our hand and see what happened. It's kind of fun. My hand did okay. My hand was wandering all over the place. Probably the position I put my body in. And I thought as a longer form exercise, we might explore shape. Done some research in our first year curriculum. A fellow faculty took scholarships, and also in developing how we introduce students to design through abstraction to kind of overcome preconceptions a little bit into Richard Stiny. He teaches at MIT in like the computation department, but he has a series of books and a long history of research into what he calls shape grammars. So it's a way of looking at shapes and thinking with shapes. It's about visual thinking and for him even like visual computation and calculation. That the way we create shapes and how they interact is a very mathematical position. And so we introduce the students to that in its relation to geometry and architecture, but also as a way of thinking more freely with what they start to identify as shape. You ask the student often to draw a shape on a page, and first pick something kind of familiar, and just draw out maybe a square, maybe that circle, a lot of times triangle. You can get these basic geometry shapes that we're all familiar with. They're bring it to the table, and that's a good place to start. I like to really question and walk through with them, like, how do we draw these? So if you take a square and you ask 15 people to get on a whiteboard, draw a square, you're going to get 5 to 10 different ways of drawing it. So sometimes a student will start one line, extend from the corners to the others, and working their way around. This one, this way, this way, this way, this way. Others will just go around the square, pushing and pulling the pencil in a continuous fashion. Some people will even do a little parallel line connection. Others may make an L shape and then finish it with another L shape. All these ways are just how we've learned. There's also usually a big difference between right-handed and left-handed people and how they've thought about it because of their spatial interaction with the page and how they draw it. It's also very different to do it on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. And so then we can start to break down these shapes they first recognize, atomic shapes, think about other ways they're constructed. For instance, the double L. We can also recognize this as a shape. I used a letter shape as an L, but we just call it an L shape. And then an L shape can connect with another L shape to be a square. The L shape can do other things too. Any shape could just be there, a shape defined as two lines connected and point to the 90-degree angle, and another L shape could overlap it. So the way they square, I guess, could overlap in different ways. They could overlap in different sizes. They don't have to be even. They're not always square. They can stay heart and make a more open shape. Introjected shape. Something else we could get from a square, maybe draw around and just leave one side off. You get kind of a U shape. And then that U shape can move around, change orientation, change width, height, and very quickly begin to build up into complexity. At first, maybe it's arbitrary, it's just quickly changing the shape, and then after we've done a small drawing, I think, what can I do with this shape if I give it some parameters, or some guides, or some rules, really think about what it can do. So we walk through and say, okay, this is a U, 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 this is a U. So what can you do? Well, it can rotate in any orientation. Do that too. It can scale. Scale icon. It can scale in one direction or separately, and it can, in a sense, move around. And these are kind of the basic operations we can use to build things up from shapes. Move them, copy them, scale them, rotate them, and any more complex behavior after that. For instance, stretching, twisting, bending. So take an action and use that as our guide for what we often call rules, but are just the underpinnings of a system of thinking. So I'm going to apply U shape and I'm going to set up some basic rules for myself. I'll draw my first one here. Switch to the pen. Pencil's getting a little dull. And say, kind of a tall U with an N shape from this orientation. Try to get too out of what we call them, just so we can identify it and then group a series of lines that comes together. And take and try to recreate roughly the same shape, the same orientation in a few places around the page. Just establishing the beginning of a field within this empty space of the page. Maybe I stack them loosely, diagonally, bringing in some other forms of language to help identify what I'm doing. The adjective, the verb, the adverb-verb connection. And once I've done that loose stack, think about how I could connect these. Maybe I rotate 90 degrees, and I start somewhere in the middle of one until I reach out somewhere to the middle of the other. You can complete my same U shape. And another shape has to be a little more flexible because it didn't plan out with the ruler precisely where those other ones go. So they begin to meander and stretch. Some things I didn't even think about as rules come into play, and it just passes of the shape. Like I can adopt them and say, that stretching is interesting to me. So maybe now, if I'm in a new location, again, finding kind of roughly the center of a larger one, try to follow the same pattern, extend from it. extend towards the center of the other. Stretching disproportionately. I had this tendency that could not be weeded out of me in kindergarten or the rest of my life to draw all of my lines twice, like all my letters twice. It makes them kind of messy, but I find it is my way to know the shape a little bit more. And I also have come to really enjoy what happens in these little gaps between my shapes, like my repetitions, and build those into something I draw. So I've got this even U. I kind of like the shape. I'm going to switch some tactics. Let me begin again where I started, but work with my stretching. Just stretch my way through some shapes. Choose a place, turn, and then come back down only part of the way. So that I have this uneven condition. Since I started with my double winding, I'm going to keep going with it and see where it goes. And finding any other shape, just running parallel, just stretching along. Turning direction, coming down part of the way. Tracing my way back to add some wiggle, some dimension. And keep on playing out this system. Potential new rule that's developing. This long stretches up, crosses several things, and then returns across one thing. I broke the rule accidentally here, and I'd like to encourage students to say, where are you following a general repeatable set of ideas so that you can develop some systematic thinking to these abstract shapes? Where do you break that rule, break that system? And what do you think about it? This could extend further and cross this one shape to be more consistent with the idea. But that might be also a place to explore further, to build up some layers of density where I broke the rule, I changed the rule. Maybe now I'll use the same parallelness, but change size. Might use becoming more of a J. Start to layer them up without crossing. This is introduced the uncrossing of the shapes to this part of the drawing. My edges to be more flexible in how they begin their parallel journey. So think for me, running back over the line. So we decide if I like where it started and stopped. I like to stretch it out a little bit more. Can't really shrink it. And then just trying to fill up this space. And usually that's our main goal. We give your attention to students. Once you find a little bit of a pattern, work with it until you can fill up some of the space of the page. Start to approach density, which requires either an intensification of overlap or a dramatic shift in scale. Then your place starts to get filled up. Usually gives that a bit of a parameter of if you can't fit your pencil in anywhere anymore, you've gone far enough. Or stop when you think it looks good. It looks interesting. And then I'll go back to my main landscape, the field condition that's developing here. Start to decide, I'll think about what I can see within it. Are there new opportunities for shapes? How I might redefine them? I'm feeling right now with this drawing that it might need a bit more density in other places. So I'll come back to my rules, my guides that I established, and continue to work parallel by stretching out, and return lightly. And after many years of playing through this exercise, it became both nearly impossible for me to think or to understand whether drawing was good drawing, so to speak, or to explain that to students, except that when it reached a point where they thought it was interesting. And I think that's a big challenge with some of the freshmen. They want to have a right answer coming from high school, and it always feels a little bit, perhaps, mean or intentionally frustrating to keep pushing them that there isn't one. But in trusting that and doing it a few times, giving them the opportunity to read their drawings and make new decisions about it, they start to find a voice through their medium, think and choose. Then it makes pretty interesting. Things that I never expected or planned out, given them a path to follow. That's what I like about thinking with shapes. It's not too open and chaotic, but it has tons of flexibility and then other ways to give it structure. Now that I've got a bit more density onto my canvas there, I think I can start to search for new shapes. We have a whole lot of different pencil drawing elements. Let's see, let's just switch to a different color pen. And since I've been working with open shapes, maybe I'll look for things that could be more of a closed shape. I'll go back to this. It's not dark and foggy. Let's take a line. Just pick a place to start, and let my pencil start to shapes. Follow certain edges, figure out what to do when I reach them. This might be a little bit of a sketch phase. Decide what a shape is. Got this long rectangle with a little tail happening. I think I probably find a few more of those. As I layer up lines to introduce contrast shifts, intensity shifts, you can get a difference throughout the page. Helps draw the eye from making confuse the initial simple choice of a U shape with now overlapping complexity. Once I have a clear idea of a shape, it does not have to remain bound within the confines of the existing space. Free to let it do anything that any other shape can do. It can scale, move, rotate itself on the page. I want to play with these with a low scale. the shape is defined as a longer rectangle with a tail. You start from the same point of one of them. I'm drawing again using my field of lines in a larger space. I'm also going to offset a little to call attention. Just move those a little bit inside, make those a little bit longer. Find the edge, turn, make it two. See what do continue that idea of the extended shape. Offset and extend. As we start to build density, it might be a time to explore a little more emphasis and play in these overlaps. Maybe some shading. Interesting that I find a square, identifiable shape in the field. Or maybe find an L nested within other L shapes. Maybe a left out shape. Also there. Those moments of higher intensity, some hatching, just folding with edges, some shading, grounding, new beginning for the drawing. Place, put on a new layer of humor, extract the new medium, and then navigate. So these reps are very generative exercises. And layers lessons in them, also very open so students can reach towards those lessons as they are ready. At some point we get to in our semesters with architecture taking this and saying, okay, what if this is a full plan or a section or a part of a building, and letting them find a translation. How do you make this in a piece of material, like paper and other things, and make that same translation? I'm happy to continue drawing, finishing up, no more rush this morning. Last week I actually ended up sticking around and kept drawing on my drawing for a while. And then I just discharged my camera battery, so I took these like fun, low-level perspective images of my drawing. I thought they looked really cool. I don't know where I put them. They're somewhere. And I like to work with mediums in that way. Some of these quick generative techniques, you get a sketchbook or something like that. I've worked in the past with interns in my office and research students to generate some sketches and then translate them into a different medium by doing something like photography or 3D modeling from it or other things. I can use my sneaky layers of screen. I found one where they're just taking these pictures with in this case a DSLR, so it has a high degree of blurring at the edges and seeing it in like a different context as a landscape, or just recording it as a sketch. I found these to be really fun. They gave so much dimension to the layers of graphite and ink. It was exciting to me. So something else to go somewhere with these if you ever want to. Thank you very much. Great to see everybody.